Yep. All right, and we're live. I'm Andy Johnson, founder of the 21 Convention and 21 Studios, here live in Orlando, Florida with Rollo Tomassi, the one and only Rational Male.
Howdy.
Yep. Thanks for coming in for the show.
Hey, thanks. Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be in Florida again.
Yeah.
So, a lot of people, I did some live casts, I guess, from some periscopes from the road just last week. And I think a lot of people already know that I've have a new base of operations. I have 2 places that I'm living right now. I've got, I just bought a property in Florida, in case everybody was wondering what the hell is he driving across the country for. I've got a new place in Florida. It's just sort of to facilitate some business that I'm doing here. And then of course to be a little bit closer to the event and to, to work with you on some projects. And then just, my own work. And then I'm fluctuating between Reno and Florida right now.
You used to live in Central Florida too, right?
I did. I lived in Central Florida from 2005 until 2013.
Damn.
And then I was the principal creative for an import-export for wine and spirits, liquor import. And I have a couple of brands that I have an ownership stake in still. That company, the import-export company, divested in 2013. And then I just went and started doing freelance. I started actually working for myself for the first time. I mean, I was kind of working for myself with them because I had such a time. I
find it still amazing how you lived here for a couple of years and we had the convention going on so many years here and just had no idea you existed and stuff like that. Yeah.
Well, it's funny because I was writing about, I started the blog 2011. Okay. And I've been writing as a moderator for the SOSWAP forums prior to that. And then the guys on the forum said, you really need to start a blog. And they introduced me to guys like Royce and Roosh. And they said, you really need to talk to these guys and get involved in that. And so, I mean, this is now kind of manosphere history, I guess, because it wasn't even called the manosphere back then. There wasn't really even so much red pill as it was, as it's sort of turned into today. But I was writing then. Like I said, I've been in Central Florida since, 2004, really. I started living here in 2005 and then stayed until about 2013. But, that saw the inception of the blog and it saw a lot of the stuff that I put into the first book and a lot of the stuff that was in the
We had our last event in Orlando, I think in 2011 it was. Mm-hmm. So we had it in 2007 and 2011 in Orlando. Mm-hmm.
Great.
Good to have you back though.
Yeah, it's good to be back. Getting out here, I'm refamiliarizing myself with the traffic situation that's here. So
cool. Yeah. So guys, during this live stream, we're actually going to take questions live on the chat. I can just see it on my right here. So if you guys ask a question, we'll get into it. Oh, there's Ivan Throne too. What's going on, bud?
Oh, right on.
Yep.
Hi, bud.
And also the focus of this live stream is different, obviously, than the Redman group. This is just us in studio talking. Mm-hmm. We're going to discuss the upcoming 21 convention this year in Orlando, Florida, October 11th to the 14th, where you can get tickets at the21convention.org. That's .org. Or in the video description right beneath this video, there's a link. You can click it, go get tickets. I'll be there myself, of course, as well as Rollo Tomassi, and right now, 18 other speakers in addition to us, including just signed on today, Hypnotica, Eric Von Sydow, who was a speaker last year.
Cool. Good. Yep. Yeah, I remember his. Good talk last year.
He was very well received from both crowds, the Red Pill crowd and the PUA crowd. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, he's old school too. I mean, wasn't he?
He's in the game.
Yeah, he was in the game. Yep. That's right.
I think his name in the game was not Hypnotica; it was like Rasputin or something like that. So, but he's been coaching men since the 90s.
Yeah, good dude.
Yeah.
Yep. So, who else do we have this year?
We have a whole bunch. We're actually gonna go through the speakers and kind of discuss them one by one with you guys. So obviously we have the beautiful bastard, Anthony Dream Johnson and Rollo Tomassi. After that, we have Socrates, an alumni speaker of the convention, spoken many times, and Hunter Drew, the family alpha.
Cool. Yeah, it's good to have Hunter back. I think I was the one that suggested we bring him on. I think Hunter brings a different aspect. Really, I think, at least as far as what I've been, talking to you about, like when I first decided that I wanted to come on to this project, I said, I'll do it, but I want to see it, lean a little bit more to a red pill, from intersectional dynamics perspective, red pill, a theme, I guess. And you were ready to go with that. So
leaning as hard as I can.
But I think that the great thing that this event has sort of evolved into is that we have such a depth, I think, of speakers now, and they can all speak to different aspects of like becoming better men, being, living in a red pill aware, I don't say ideology because it's not an ideology, but living in a red pill aware.
It's a praxology, right?
Praxology, yeah. But I mean, being, because I think that a lot of guys come to the red pill, and then you've got guys who are, all they want to do is they want to learn how to get laid. And there's that pickup artist aspect of it. And then you've got guys who are married, and maybe they were awakened while married, and they decided that, they wanted to change something about themselves. They want to change their life. So I think those are kind of two almost, I don't want to say they're polar opposites. They're not really opposites, but they are certainly represent different ideals when it comes to red pill thought, because, guys who are married are going to want to have, I don't see why they can't learn red pill awareness and understand how to use that to benefit themselves.
Yep.
We have speakers like, who else is?
Well, we'll go through them.
Yeah, we can go through them. But I was going to say is Hunter actually brings sort of that traditional masculinity to the table. Yeah. I think he's an interesting add to this because, the guy's married. He's got a different perspective. I think. I really think that he's got something that's, I don't want to say it's unique to him, because there's other guys that do what he does, but I think that just the way that he goes about it, and he's got some other program I think going right now called Fraternity of Excellence, and so he does these programs and stuff for guys as well, and it's very much I would say action oriented. So he does these
acting
things
on verbos.
Yeah, exactly. And it's very much action oriented and very much I think much more encouraging. He's an encouraging guy.
Yeah.
So.
Yep, something lacking in today's culture too, that strength. Next up on the list, we have Jack Murphy. Recently published a book called Democrat to Deplorable, I believe. Someone you recommended to me.
Yeah, another guy. Jack used to be, and it's not his real name, but he might as well be, because he's really made a name for himself.
Oh, he did get doxxed.
Yeah, he did get doxxed very recently.
Yep.
And he's been put through the ringer. So I have been in contact with Jack for a very long time. There was a point where he was very much involved in the red pill community from an intersexual dynamics perspective. And then he decided that he wanted to sort of do a little bit more, be a little more involved in the political side of things. And that's not really my wheelhouse, I guess, as far as, the red pill is concerned. But definitely a guy I think has a really good perspective, particularly when it comes to the socio-political side of the red pill with respect to intersexual dynamics, which is, of course, one of the reasons why he got doxxed recently, is because he ended up, I guess, getting caught in the radar of some Antifa chick. I can't remember.
I'm not even sure. Yeah.
She's now in jail, actually, I think.
He was also too a school board member, I think.
And it's really kind of tragic. I think that, and I'm probably not doing him justice, because I wish I was a little bit more familiar than I am. But we actually, when we first started the Red Man group, we were using our super chats to sort of help him out with his legal.
That's right.
His legal defense. He got doxxed and ended up losing his job. And more than that, he ended up losing his. I think he was a coach for Little League.
I think that's right.
And ended up getting kicked off as a coach for something like that, and basically just completely ruined his life. So it was like sometimes we need those things, because it sort of pushes us into the next phase. It sucks that he got doxxed, and it sucks that he has had to have his what's called having his bread taken away from him. Like to try to destroy you.
It raises awareness and action too. Like he's going to speak now. He wrote a book where people are sending money.
He's written a book. He's got. I think he sort of pushed that. This whole incident has sort of pushed him over the edge to doing what he does a little bit more full time now. I'm not sure that he's got his job back, but
man, who does that remind me of? Rollo Tomassi.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, I don't know. I just decided. I mean, if you want to talk about me personally,
you didn't get doxxed, but
I did not get doxxed. I have been doxxed in the past, but that was probably about 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay.
That's when I was really worried more about. I'm really more concerned about the safety of my family and my daughter and my dogs, whatever. because I don't have to worry too much about offending the wrong people with what I say now. There was a time where I was, like when I was telling you I was working for the import-exporter. I had to be very careful with that because I was a representative of at least 12 different brands at that time.
Okay.
And if I was to be viewed in the wrong light with any one of them, it could have been something that was very detrimental. But now that I'm out of that situation, I'm much more anti-fragile, I guess, is the thing. I'm at a point right now where I don't have to worry too much about that, but that's not to say that other people don't.
Yeah.
I mean, even a guy like Hunter still has to worry about getting doxxed.
Yep.
So, even if you have like a really positive message, you're still going to, just because you are taking a pro-masculine stance today, just because you do that in any conventional sense, they're going to associate with you with misogyny, no matter what. I mean, you can literally be a pro. I mean, you take a guy like Dr. Warren Farrell, for instance, who, I mean, I think has had a lot of great things to say in the past. Not a guy I would recommend today as far as being a red pill kind of guy, because he seems to me as somebody who is very much egalitarian and very much an equalist. But again, even if you've got a guy who is putting what he talks about in the most positive light that he possibly can in today's social environment, you're going to always risk being doxxed, or always risk having your words twisted around to be whatever that other people want.
And essentially it's because all masculinity is seen as toxic now.
Oh yeah,
so
definitely.
Anything that's pro-masculinity is like evil.
And I mean, we can talk about Peterson later on if you want, but I mean, recently he's been sort of vilified by the left because of his comments about enforced monogamy.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Which, of course, if I'm reading this or if I'm listening to this, I understand what he's talking about, but I also know that he probably knew, or maybe he did, maybe he didn't, but he probably knew that he was going to be deliberately misconstrued, because that, again, is the environment that we find ourselves in right now socially. Because
I don't even know
anything they can hit you with,
exactly.
they will hit you. Yeah.
I mean, is there anything he can say that's not going to be misconstrued? Same with you.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. I mean, that's why for a guy like me, I'm at a point where it's like, I don't have to worry too much about offending, like I said, the wrong people. But that doesn't mean that other people, such as Jack Murphy, for instance, definitely has to watch out for that. And I think you draw an even bigger target on yourself when you get into the socio-political arena for this kind of stuff.
You probably attract more enemies, basically.
Oh, definitely. I mean, it was Antifa.
Yeah, there you go.
Ivan Throne knows about Antifa.
We'll get to Ivan Throne in a minute. Let's get to the next speaker on the list for the upcoming event this year in Orlando, Florida, 21Con. Richard Cooper, returning speaker from Entrepreneurs in Cars.
Yes, excellent. I'm glad to have Rich back.
Yeah.
Rich and I have sort of developed a really good friendship. And I've, like, when I asked you, hey, why don't we get Rich on for last year's? I think I had talked to.
Well, that's how I found him, was through you.
Yeah, I think I had talked to him twice, and he was very much into the first book that he attributes that for his sort of awakening, and uses my work in a lot of his what's it called, therapy, but his counseling and his his advice and his coaching and stuff like that. Really, I like Rich because he puts into practice what I write about as far as theory is concerned. And he's a good guy if you're looking for actionable things. Like my approach is I am descriptive and not prescriptive. And anybody who's read my work understands why I'm prescriptive or descriptive. But if you're looking for somebody who is prescriptive, I guess I would recommend Rich as the top guy to talk to.
Yep, it's fucking awesome. Yeah, it's interesting too. He's actually so far the most popular speaker out of the 2017 event in terms of views, which I did not see coming. You're doing really strong too, and other guys, Jack Donovan, all them.
And I don't have a YouTube channel. I mean, I'm not an official one, anyways. I mean, I have a reserved channel that I have not done much with, but that might change soon. I might actually.
Well, with him, it was just a comment. It was a clip he took out of his speech, focusing on single mothers, and that now has almost 500,000 views.
Oh yeah,
It's triggered the shit out of people.
Yeah, it's because it's very triggering. Yeah, and it sparks a conversation, and
that's right.
That's everybody who knows my writing. One of the reasons I push the print version of my book so much is because I want to spark those conversations between people, and that I think is where we're at when it comes to manosphere and the femisphere.
Books are also hard to delete. Their print book.
That too.
You got to burn them.
But it's also, I see us becoming very much. We're already a very polarized country right now. And there's polarization not just between political and ideological lines. There's gender lines right now too, and I think that people really don't appreciate just how polarized the sexes are right now.
Yep, I 100% agree. Yeah. I think we're obviously the minority thing on that, though. Next speaker we're going to talk about is Alan Roger Curry, returning speaker to the event.
Mode one. Yeah.
It was also the first Black speaker we ever had in our history at the event.
Yeah. Another guy that I've developed a really good friendship with over the years. I got in touch with Alan Roger Curry through another video blogger known as Obsidian. And
it's like his enemy, right?
Things have kind of changed between the two of them. I don't know, actually. Maybe that'd be a good topic to bring up next time we have. He's been on the Redman Group at least once before.
Alan?
Alan's
briefly he was on a couple times.
But yeah, he ended up turning me on to Alan, and Alan he's got a channel on Blog Talk Radio.
Yeah,
and he does his own thing as far as his kind of coaching is much more about direct game, and it's sort of he's a good guy to cut the bullshit and get right down to the nuts and bolts.
I'm a huge fan.
Thing. Yeah, I am too. He's very much about pragmatism, and I like that because I try to be as pragmatic as I can in what I write about. I think that the thing that makes him, I don't say controversial, but the things that makes him talked about is that directness right now is always something that's going to be triggering, particularly in a post-Me Too society, because what he suggests, while it's very pragmatic and very to the point, it can be misconstrued as sexual misconduct or sexual assault right now if it's taken the wrong way. And so we get into these conversations. I think we did on the Redman Group. We get into these conversations about should you be that direct in an era when you can lose your job for that. Certainly you don't want to be that, hey baby, I find you attractive, I want to have sex with you. That can certainly be taken the wring way when you're at work. That's the PG-13 version of it too. And while I think that's a good, I think that direct approach has a lot of merits to it. I do think that in this day and age, it's a bit dangerous, and maybe that's something we want to talk about this year.
Yeah. Cool. Next up is Donovan Sharp from the Sharp Reality.
Do we need to explain who Donovan Sharp is?
One of the top contributors on one of the top people banned on Twitter and YouTube apparently.
Yes. Donovan's a great guy, and anybody who's watched the Redman Group, and if you're watching this, you've probably watched the Redman Group. He's a regular on the Redman Group, which is probably something we should probably talk about during this talk as well.
Sure.
And the future of that project. But Donovan is very outspoken. He is very to the point.
Very aggressive.
He's very aggressive. And that's just who he is, and that's how he does it. I've never heard anything from him that hasn't been, founded in, a red pill awareness, has been founded in something that, I think one of the reasons that people have such a problem with Donovan is, first of all, his delivery is very rough.
Oh yeah.
But it's rough and it's to the point and it's truthful.
It's very masculine.
And he, just like I said, his delivery is very, very to the point, very rough, but I have yet to find anyone who can really dispute much of what he has to say. So as a result of that, he gets kicked off of YouTube and he gets kicked off of Twitter by the, blue-haired, fuchsia-haired, feminist thought police on those channels. And, I think what's interesting is he's going to be a good example of what's going to happen, I think, I'm going to make a prediction here. I'm going to say probably within the next couple of years, I think you're going to see a lot of the manosphere is going to migrate from YouTube and from Twitter over to other formats or other platforms, I should say.
Like Gab and
because
Minds.
Gab I'm on Gab too, by the way. You're going to see people moving. That's one of the reasons I kind of am hesitant about starting my own YouTube channel right now, because my delivery is I try to be as clinical as I possibly can in my delivery, but every once in a while I pepper in an F this or F that. But I mean, if you're going to do that, I mean, we've discussed this before, with the Redman group. I mean, you got to keep everything PG-13 for these people, so you don't want to give them anything because they already want to get rid of you. They're just looking for a chance to get rid of you. And Donovan at every turn gives them something to. It's
interesting. He got banned, but we have never had a single problem on YouTube other than demonetization.
Right.
So we get that like everyone else.
We expect that. So we expect that.
Yeah, I think our channel has gotten to the point with size that at least as of yet we've had no problems, and there's been no attempt to delete or ban the channel. That could change in the future, but I think as you get bigger, the probability that goes down actually.
Is Donovan still on Patreon?
Yes, he's not been banned
so he hasn't been kicked off, because I know of a few people who had been kicked off.
Yeah, someone else today got kicked off. I forget who, I could check, but it was some big Patreon account. Yeah, it was kind of alt-right or something like that, and they just ended up banning it.
Right. So, well, I mean, if you look at a guy like Milo Yiannopoulos, and you say, well, is there life after Twitter? Yes, there's definitely life after Twitter. It takes some doing. Milo's got his own channel on YouTube right now too. It's huge. And very huge, very popular, and they can't really argue with that. Like I said, and maybe this is a conversation for maybe a Redman group actually, but I think that the most popular platforms today are looking for ways to deplatform manosphere speakers. They're looking for reasons to do that. I think that within a couple of years, that migration is going to happen. If I have a fear about anything, and I think a lot of people think that, once you've declared yourself as anti-fragile, that you don't have to worry about anything anymore. And I'll tell you right now that there's no such thing as being 100% anti-fragile. There's always something that you are dependent on.
That's right.
And right now, and that's one of the reasons that I don't want to quit my day job, because I don't ever want to be financially dependent on having to worry about book sales or having to being kicked off of YouTube
or coaching. And
stuff like that. That kind of stuff. I never want to have to compromise my message because of that. And then, like I said, but in that realm, if I have a greatest fear, it is being deplatformed off of, say, like WordPress, or being deplatformed off of Amazon.
Well, do you run your site on WordPress.com, or is it self-hosted?
I run it on WordPress.com.
Oh, yeah, so, they could.
Yeah, so they can, but I reach about 500,000 viewers every month. I have a very if you go and you look at my Alexa ratings, I'm way up there right now. I mean, as far as
we could also migrate it to WordPress self-hosted, which
and that's probably going to be something I'm coming up in the future.
They would have a really hard time banning you from that.
That's another thing I have in the works right now. I'm considering doing a forum right now for the Rational Mail forum.
Nice.
I've got a guy working on it for me right now. I'm going to do the front end. I'm going to have him do the back end.
Cool.
And so that's coming up. I'm also thinking, like I said, I'm thinking about doing a YouTube channel, but again, I'm a little concerned about platforming right now, particularly with guys like Donovan. So.
Yep. Next speaker up, actually, we skipped him. Ivan Throne, the Dark Dryad man. Returning speaker to the convention from last year. Everybody fucking loved this guy.
Yeah.
Like, it was awesome.
Ivan is he's a firebrand in a big way, because he will go out and punch faces. I mean, and I don't mean that in a literal sense. I mean that in self-defense. But he goes out there and he's not afraid to go out and directly challenge. Again, he's more socio-political. He and I have been YouTube. Have been Twitter friends for quite some time now, and I mean he's on board with a lot of what I write. But again, he's not a guy that's really in my wheelhouse. But again, he's one of the speakers who sort of covers a specific area, I think. And that's what, like I said, that's a great thing about the 21 convention, is that it's so diverse right now. It's like there's no matter where you are in your life as a man, there's somebody there who is going to teach you something.
Yep.
Even the people you don't think. And you and I have had this conversation before, where I've said before, like when I was at university and I can remember taking these classes, and I was older when I was, I got my degree when I was in my 30s. Yeah. So I was there with kids in their 20s, complaining, oh, I'm never going to use this class for anything. Fuck this and fuck that. And I'm like, having an education itself is rewarding no matter what, because you're going to learn something. Half of the reason that I became Rollo Tomassi and I write what I do is because I took those classes that I didn't think would have anything to do with, my major or what it was that I planned on doing in life. I think that being a well-educated man is its own reward. And that's one of the reasons I like what we're doing here, is because it gives you a better breadth of speakers.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, too, high school used to do that in the United States a long time ago.
Yeah, really, a long time ago.
Yeah. You would go to high school and you'd have like a college level education compared to today.
Yeah. But I can remember taking like humanities classes, or what guys would say is liberal education. I found I got a lot of value out of those, but I got value out of them indirectly, not directly. And I think that's, if I'm making a comparison here, I'm thinking that you're going to benefit from going to this in ways that you don't think that you're going to benefit. You're going to go, why would I want to go and pay that kind of money to go see just, because I only want to see Rollo, or I only want to see Donovan, or I only want to see those. Trust me, the guys that we've got lined up for this is just, this year is phenomenal. I don't want to take anything away from last year, because last year was pretty good.
I know,
because that was sort of the new benchmark for what we're doing. But I think that this year's gonna be great.
Yeah, I agree. This convention, the one coming up, is like a second generation Red Pill edition of the event. Last year was the first edition. It was badass.
I mean, you can't argue with the numbers. You can't argue with the results and the feedback on it too.
So,
So it's going to be great to have live.
The business is booming. Like the more we embrace the Red Pill and controversial ideas like that, the better things do.
I think so.
It's risky. No doubt.
Yeah, it's all around. And it's not, I think the great thing, and like you and I have had this conversation before, is like one of the reasons, like I turned Anthony down a couple of times when he invited me to come to the 21 convention. I turned him down. It was all part of the plan. Yeah, because I really felt that it was very much purple pill, and it was very much sort of sell you my 12-step program to a better life, or here's the steps to being a better man, kind of thing. And
to be fair, you were 100% right. If for at least like half the convention.
Well, thank you. I'd like to think I was, but that's the great thing I think about this is like, there's guys like say Hunter, who's probably going to talk about, I don't know what his topic is, but I think he's going to talk about his fraternity of excellence type thing.
Maybe.
Right. Yeah. So, you're going to listen to that at some point.
Well, I think a lot of guys don't realize that it's really rare I demand a speaker talk about a specific topic. I invite you to the event and I expect you to speak about your focus, and that's it.
Yeah.
After that, it's up to you guys, whatever you guys want.
Yeah. And that's again, that's the beauty of it. What do you think, if you consider this a Red Pill Summit, what is it that you want to be remembered for? Because we've got 11 years, soon to be 11 years of video. I mean, what is your contribution to the manosphere? What is your contribution to this aspect of the Red Pill?
And in terms of speaking too, in my mind, it's like, what do you as a speaker think is important for men to hear? Like, what do they need to hear right now with regard to what you focus on?
Yeah, and that's good. And I like getting that feedback from guys. I like, I have such a wide variety of guys who hit me up. I got kids who are 15 years old saying, oh, how do I get my girlfriend back? And then I've got guys who are 70 years old who are just saying, hey,
your
man,
15-year-old girlfriend.
Yes, exactly. I will tell you this. I have talked to kids as young as 12 years old who are just distraught because a girl turned them down. And we've been I was talking about this with Pat Campbell not too long ago. It's like, this is the generation that we have to prepare for. I mean, this is why it's important that we're doing what we're doing here and on our own, and because we go for a whole year. I go for a whole year being Rollo Tomassi and writing a book or writing this or doing whatever project I have. You do your thing. Ivan does his thing. Other speakers do their thing. And then we come together, at the summit, and we say, here's what we're doing right now. And here's where we think things are going. And then we're there for 4 days. It's guys getting together, doing guy stuff and talking about things that would otherwise probably get you fired.
Oh yeah.
You know, if you were to talk about them in any other context. And then we go off and we do our things together, or maybe we cooperate on certain projects and things, and we come back.
The Red Man Group's an excellent example.
Exactly. Yep. The Red Man Group was, and you know, it's funny, and maybe we should talk about this later, but the Red Man Group was just sort of a casual thing. I don't think people really realize it. People think that it was like some, you know, grand conspiracy or something.
We didn't have a name for it.
We didn't have a name for it. We're just like, hey, why don't we get like 4 or 5 guys together who are, you know, some of them were speakers or some of the people that I think that would like people in the manosphere, people on, you know, the Twitter side of manosphere would want to hear from. And so now I've got Ryan. Ryan was a speaker. We've got Carl from Black Label Logic.
It's basically speakers or speakers to be.
Hopefully, we've had a limitable man. We've had, you know, Donovan's a regular now. And then we you know, we kind of flip flop it between you hosting and Richard Cooper hosting. And so now it's sort of become, it's snowballed into something that I never thought it was going to be. And I'm actually very excited.
We should use George Bruno's channel at some point too.
I think so.
He's got a good 60,000.
Well, anybody on the list would be great.
Oh yeah. Well, anybody that's particularly with a big channel though, like that, because then it pings it out, gets a shit ton of views like that.
Right. So who's next?
Next up on the list is Sean Smith, PsyD.
Yes.
First clinical psychologist to speak at the convention.
Yeah. And I'm glad to have him on board because he brings a legitimacy to a lot of the stuff that I mean, I've got a background in psychology as well, but I don't have a doctorate and I don't do it for a living.
And you're not in the FBI.
Yeah.
And stuff like
and
that.
I think that what Sean is doing by coming and speaking at this is really, I don't think that people really appreciate how much of his ass he's putting on the line to do this, because he could very well lose his practice, or if he gets associated with this kind of like with a red pill kind of thing.
They could try going after his license.
Yeah, they could very much go after his license. They could very much
even Socrates is worried about
he's
that.
in Canada too. So
no, he's in Colorado.
Oh, he's in Colorado.
Denver.
Okay. I think of him as being Canadian because he's always with Rich. So
well, there's also Jordan Peterson. So he
that too. Well, anyway, so I mean, it's very. He's taking a risk by doing what he does. He's been on the Red Man Group at least twice, maybe 3 times now. I think
2 times.
And he brings a depth of experience, I think, just to the conversation where I mean, I would say that Dr. Smith and I agree on probably, I'd say 95% of stuff. He's also the author of A Tactical Guide for Women. So people don't know that. He was the author of that book, which I think is really, really good.
Yes.
I think so from a nuts and bolts perspective.
Well, I like his book too, because it reminds me of your book a lot, but it's not from the manosphere perspective. It's from a psychologist perspective.
Yes.
And it's really easy for guys to grab onto who are not familiar with like the lingo and the acronyms and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So your book and his book are the 2 books I recommend most right now.
I'm
guys that are
I'm doing my best to sort of try to lean away from acronyms a little bit. You know, I mean, when I say SMV or SMP, most people know what I mean.
PUA, MGTOW, TRP,
I know. And you know, what's funny is like those acronyms just represent groups. I can remember when we talk about AFCs and we talk about, you know, average frustrated sarging and all of this old school game vernacular. I think we're kind of moving back away from that, but yeah, I feel you, and message received. I get it.
I mean, your book, of course, made perfect sense to me. But the average guy, you know, working at Walmart or something.
They're not understanding that kind of stuff. Or they have to. You know, I try to put a synopsis or a glossary in the back. So, but yeah, having Sean is really, I think he's a great addition to this, and I'm interested to see what he's going to talk about. Yeah, I mean, it's probably going to be about his practice, or probably going to be because he specializes. I think he's a marriage counselor, but he specializes in couples counseling, and he does so from a red pill perspective. And he's not the only guy I've ever heard about that. Because one of the biggest compliments I ever had, I got at last year's convention. Because I had guys coming up to me saying, "Hey, I got your book because my therapist or the guy that I see, my psychologist suggested I read your book, and that's why I actually made the trip out here to meet you and everything because it changed my life." And so since then, I've had at least 3 other guys tell me the same thing, and then I've had at least a couple other male therapists, I guess, come back to me and say, "Yeah, I use your book."
Nice. Next up on the list is Jack Donovan, author of The Way of Men, returning speaker to the event from last year too.
Yeah, he was my most memorable speech was, I won't say experience because we went and had dinner with him and hung out with him for a while. Yep. When it comes to, and this is, I
was actually just there
last
night.
People who know Jack's background, I get what you're going to think, but he has this understanding. I mean, he's written so much about what I call in my books conventional masculinity, and really has a way of articulating, the tribal masculinity. What was the title of his speech last time?
A More Complete Beast.
A More Complete Beast.
Just came out actually on YouTube.
Yeah,
channel.
I'm absolutely I would suggest anybody go check that out. But it's absolutely. I mean, I understand that the guy is gay, but the guy, honest to God, knows. I mean, maybe it takes a guy like that.
I mentioned that to him.
Maybe it takes a guy like that to really, step away from it. Because, you got all these, it's interesting how we have like MGTOWs who say they want to step away from the game and they want to, I don't want to put my self-worth into, having to qualify for women. Yep. I feel you. I get you. I agree 100%. But there's no more a complete way of doing that than doing what Jack Donovan.
Well, he understands masculinity from a different perspective. Yeah, factually speaking.
I think he brings a very valuable piece of the puzzle.
And he was also the first gay speaker that we've ever known of at the convention. Yeah. So, I don't care. I mean, however, black, white, gay, straight.
Well,
Jew,
and that's,
whatever.
I've always said that, we need to have an aggregate of all men's experience, whether you're, no matter what country you're from, no matter what color your skin is,
religion.
No matter what your religion is. And I'm working on a book on religion right now. And I've learned that I really got to, I've had to open the parameters of that book quite a bit. I had originally focused on an evangelical, I wanted to speak to the evangelical beta guy and say Christian guys in specific. And then people picked up on that I was writing about religion and the red pill, and everybody wanted to help me with it. I've seriously got a dozen guys that are helping me, I mean, I'm the one writing the book, but they're giving me articles and they're giving me research and they're giving me their experiences. And I think that's really valuable, but that's one small area. I mean, that's the religious area of the red pill. But I really think that from a cultural standpoint, from a socioeconomic standpoint, I mean, you think about how many other ways can we sort of subdivide masculinity? Well, if we can do that at the convention, that's great. But I've always wanted to at least take into account every guy's experience and then again aggregate that as red pill wearers.
Well, even with the speakers, I find it amazing that the convention this year will have, I'm a devout objectivist atheist. Mm-hmm. There's also devout Christians, Catholics, Mormons. Mm-hmm. I'm probably Jewish myself too. Mm-hmm. Ross Jeffries is Jewish. Ashkenazi Jew. We'll do the triple parentheses, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the convention really, though, is a really hardcore melting pot of different philosophies and religions like that. Yeah. Which wasn't the intention, but it's just how it turns out.
That's how it works. And I really, that was really my perspective from the beginning is like, I will talk to guys in, Mumbai or, South Africa, or I'll talk to people in China or talk to people in Japan. It's like, I have so many guys hit me up from around the world that it would be very foolish for me to just say, oh, your experience doesn't count.
Yeah.
No, every guy's experience counts because women are women wherever you go.
Yep. Next up on the speaking list is Black Dragon, or Caleb Jones. He runs the Black Dragon blog and a few others.
Mm-hmm. Yep. You'll have to tell me about Black Dragon because I know him and I've read his stuff before. And he has, I know he's quoted my stuff on occasion. And from what I know, he's very popular as far as
his blog has a solid following, over 20,000 followers.
He's not I don't think he's MGTOW.
I don't think so.
No.
Nope. He what he promotes, I think, is called an alpha male 2.0 lifestyle. Mm-hmm. So it's sort of like a more practical version, in my opinion, of what you're writing about. Mm-hmm. He's very red pill. I don't know how much he identifies with the red pill, but from what he writes in his articles, it's very red pill. Mm-hmm. Yep, and he's been recommended to me for years by a number of people. And I've seen his blog over time.
Yeah, I see a lot of pingbacks in my comments from him. Yep. And I've read at least a good portion of what he's written.
Yep. So he's just he's a good manosphere blogger. I'm looking forward to having him at the event.
Yeah, I'd like to meet him.
And then when he gives a speech, we're going to see what happens. I think he's going to kick ass. Next up on the list is the one and only Ed Lattimore.
Yes. I so wanted to get Ed for last.
He was
last
he
year.
was confirmed temporarily last year.
Yeah, and unfortunately we didn't get him last year, but he's confirmed now.
Yep.
He's confirmed now. So we got Ed Lattimore, which I think is fantastic. If anybody has listened to the interview that I did with him on the Mark Baxter show way back when I think Mark still has, I think he's made those because he took them offline for a while. And I think he put them back on. But I have been a fan of Ed's for quite some time. He brings a really positive message. I think. If there's one guy that I'm looking forward to from a positive masculinity respect, it's Ed. He's also about self-development very much.
He calls himself now a self-improvement blogger.
Yeah, I don't know that we really even need to give him too much more of an introduction because Ed's pretty popular. He's popular with I think he did something with Cernovich for a while.
Maybe.
Yeah, he's been doing something with Cernovich, and he's done some other. He does a lot of speaking engagements, and he was a boxer.
Yep.
He just graduated from college, and I can't remember what he
was
got.
studying. He's studying
a master's
physics.
degree in physics, I think, or does he have a doctorate?
I'm not sure.
I can't remember.
Yep.
I know that he just recently graduated. Congratulations, Ed.
Yep.
But yeah, the guy is just a fantastic mind, and I'm looking forward to meeting him in person. I've done a couple of talks with him before, and he and I bounce ideas off each other. So
cool. Look forward to him. Next up on the list is Alexander J.A. Cortez, Twitter star extraordinaire. I've talked to him a little bit on the phone. Yeah. You know him more than I do, though.
I've known AJ for a while, mostly via Twitter. He had, and again, these are guys that I've met because they've in some way either impressed me in some way, or they've used my material as a basis for some point that they're making, and then I get a ping back for them, and I just sort of followed them after that. AJ is an interesting character. We had him. I've been on his show because he's got kind of a YouTube
podcast
thing of something.
I've seen it.
Is he doing it regular? Because I didn't know if
he puts the video on YouTube, and I think he has an iTunes or SoundCloud podcast for it too.
So I went on his show once, and then we had him on the Red Man group with when Richard was hosting.
Yeah, so.
And so he's a really good guy. Very much into personal development. Again, he does personal training, and then I believe he does life coaching of some sort. He does some side of
I'm not sure.
red pill coaching.
To be honest,
I'm not really sure. He will probably be able to tell us better than others, but he is also a ballet dancer.
That's right.
Yeah, ballet dancer in hella good shape. He's in great, and also looks like 29 years old. It helps that he looks like Jesus.
Yeah. He's that young. He's my age.
29. Yeah.
Wow.
And that's what he told me last time, I believe. Really good guy. I think he brings, what does he bring what would you say AJ brings to the table? I think he brings sort of I don't want to say a spirituality, but sort of maybe in a way
that's the Goldman.
Goldman brings this sort of,
100%.
I think AJ is really more about personal development. I think he's if I had to say what does he bring to the table, I think he's the personal development guy in a different fashion than say like Ed would be.
He has more of a focus on health and fitness too.
Health and fitness for sure.
Yep.
And what's funny is AJ was on Pastor Peterson, Dr. Peter, not
Jesse Peterson.
Jesse Peterson. Yeah, he was on the show with that, and I remember seeing him on that because I went on his Jesse Peterson's show, and I remember watching AJ on there. I'm like, this guy's got it together. So I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, Jesse's great. He asks just badass questions.
Yeah, Jesse's he's fantastic. And again, that's another guy. I think Jesse has. The guy's like almost 70 years old. The guy's like 68, 69 years old. And he gets out there, he gets in people's faces.
Oh, yeah.
He does
I've seen a lot of his videos. They're fucking awesome.
Yeah. Great dude.
I don't know if he'll end up being a speaker someday, but Jesse Peterson's definitely welcome at the event.
Oh, for sure. I'd love to have him. And
press pass, whatever.
He's inspirational in a sense that he's a guy that goes out there and just does what he does. I mean, he's got his radio show. He's got The Fallen State, which is his podcast, but his video podcast where he's got a one-on-one kind of thing.
That's what you went on.
Yeah, no, I went on the radio show.
Okay.
I went on his radio, which is also live cast as well. So he's got a real terrestrial radio show.
Oh, wow.
And then he's got The Fallen State. And then he also does sort of on the street kind of interviews, and he will directly go up to people who he knows are his ideological rivals or his ideological opponents and just go straight at them.
Yeah, the level of bluntness that guy has for his questions, it's sort of polite, but it's just like
yeah, and he's
like
he's really good at I want to say Socratic method. He'll ask questions and lead you to where he wants you to go.
Yep.
I'm wondering if he even knows he's doing that.
Maybe. Next up on the list is Goldman Unleashed, a returning speaker to the convention that Rollo recommended to me last year at the event.
Yes, Goldman is great. He was one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, myself and Goldman and Tanner and
the spirit leader of the convention.
Definitely the shaman of this whole show. I call him the Indiana Jones of the Red Pill, and I think it's well-deserved because he is a guy who, you want to talk about guys who live life on their own terms, he does it. And he's the one who will go from place to place and is, I would call him a digital nomad in the truest sense because he just picks up and goes wherever he wants to go. He wants to experience life. Another guy who went on Jesse Peterson's show as well. I don't know if you're aware of that.
I did not see that.
And then, the reason that that was memorable to me.
I need to watch that.
Is because again, Jesse Peterson goes after Goldman and saying, what do you think about life? And asks him all these really deep kind of meaningful questions. And it's interesting because he kind of picked up on the fact that Goldman knew that Goldman was kind of this digital age, I would say nomad, but this digital age kind of hippie, almost.
Digital shaman.
Yeah, digital shaman. And he went after him. And I can remember he was asking him about monogamy. And the best line that Goldman ever came up with was, "The world is my wife." And that should give you an idea where Goldman's at. Goldman will go to, Goldman has gone to the rainforests of the Amazon to do ayahuasca or whatever. Ayahuasca. And he is always, not only is he entertaining, he teaches really good, I think, lessons for guys who are I can't imagine being locked in a cubicle and working a 9-to-5 job and then seeing Goldman out there doing, photo game, because that's what he's known for, is his photo game. And so he's been kind of run up the flagpole recently on Amazon. But you look at a guy like that, and I think that he's sort of this enigmatic kind of guy where it's like, gosh, could I ever be something like that? Could I ever be that, unattached to, my responsibilities and what I have to do? I'm not saying that Goldman is irresponsible. I'm just saying that his life is a life that I would say not too many guys are ever going to.
I would put it that he's doing a very good job living life the way he wants.
Yes.
And he's a level above me. I look at him, I'm like, this guy is the next level.
One of the things, and I don't just sing Goldman's praises all this time, but I think one of the best part about Goldman is that he has a capacity to detach himself from I don't want to call it normalcy, but he has such a way to just the things that you and I would find important when we look at materialism, or we look at wanting to have certain things in our life established, like a wife and a kid, a studio, this or a program. He has such an ability to detach himself certainly from material. He can just pick up and go and do whatever he wants. He can be happy wherever the hell he is.
Frog poison in my blood, no problem.
Well, we're talking about a guy who can go out with Christian McQueen to nightclubs in New York and hold his own with a guy like Christian McQueen, and then pick up and then the next day go sleep on the ground at some hot springs somewhere in the jungle or some shit like that. So you're looking at a guy who can separate himself from that. And I just, maybe it's just me, but I find that amazing.
No, yeah, it's admirable. Yeah. It's cool. Next up on the list is, for the 3rd time returning to the convention, Tanner Guzzi, style expert.
Tanner is the style expert. Does he still have his own haberdashery? Does he have his own men's wear thing? I think he
I
still
have no
does.
idea.
He's still doing masculine style. I know that. He's got a new book out, which I see that you have on your shelf right there. It's right there, Appearance of Power.
Which one is it?
It's right up here. No, right in front. Right there.
Oh yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
So many fucking books.
I know.
Cool. There we go.
Yeah. Tanner's not just a style guy. He gets into, I think he goes into the nuts and bolts of masculinity from an appearance. That's why it's titled Appearance of Power.
Mm-hmm.
He deconstructs all of these. I think a lot of guys have one of the misgivings I think a lot of guys have is like they say that, well, style doesn't matter to me, or what, a man should wear whatever a man wants to wear, and he shouldn't think about that, blah, blah, blah. Well,
I used to think like that till Tanner.
Me too. And he deconstructs that dynamic where it's like, even the guys who are saying, I don't care what I look like, I don't care. Even if you dressed yourself in the morning, you care in some way about how you are presenting yourself to the world. And then he goes back, to historical references and, back into ancient Greece and all through basically up to modern times right now. And whenever I see something on Twitter, somebody sends me like, say, this new fashion of like, these really super feminized men wearing, dresses and all this high fat.
There was a magazine cover. It was the rise of the beta males or something,
right?
Where they literally have their hands in the pockets.
So those guys,
the guy in front of them.
So when I see stuff like that, I think about, and Tanner, you did this to me. I cannot help but like look at guys and the way they dress right now and go, what was this guy thinking? What is he trying? What message is this guy trying to convey with his appearance? Because the way you dress and the way you present yourself, and it's not just about dressing. It's the way you talk. It's the way you hold yourself.
Posture.
We talk about Jordan Peterson, shoulders back and all
clean
that
your room,
stuff.
shoulders back.
Yeah, exactly. That is sending a message. That is communicating something, and it's just nonverbal communication. I think Tanner really has a good grasp of that.
Yeah.
And like I said, not just in the sense of here's what you should be wearing. He's not into that. He'll say, there's, you can be a rake, you can be stylish. He has a whole set archetypes for style and stuff for guys, the rebel, that kind of stuff.
Honestly, his work too has actually helped me improve my game. I'm actually better able to look at women and understand like what went into them picking this outfit and like how they're dressing, like how's the hair done.
Yeah. And it's not just about guys. Because when a woman is dressed in a certain way, you can get an idea of like,
it's a lot of information.
Where is she in her ovulatory phase?
That's right.
Is she wearing red? That kind of stuff.
Skin colors, hair.
And then just looking at what is that communicating. I think that red pill awareness is sort of a conglomeration of all of that. Is being able to see nonverbal communication, being able to listen to what women are saying, and then comparing that with what their behavior really is. Because we always talk about, and I still 100% believe this, is that, you want to watch what a woman does and not what she says. But when you listen to what a woman says and then you compare it with what she does, you can sort of see, you learn something in that. You learn something in that duplicity. You learn something.
It paints a picture.
It paints a picture. I'm not saying believe what she says. I'm just saying that understand that there is a dichotomy between what she says and what she does. So there's that. There's the how is she dressing? How is she speaking? How is she? And a part of that really is understanding, kind of, at least what Tanner talks about. And he approaches it from a male perspective, and like what, if you really didn't care about what anybody thought about you, because we always like to say that, I don't care what anybody thinks about me, or I don't care, I put on whatever clothes I want, but do you dress differently to go to a job interview? Do you dress differently to go to a funeral? Do you dress differently for different occasions and things? Do you dress differently to go to church? Things like that. And it's like, why is that something where you want to present a different image than you do something else? And he digs into that quite a bit. I think he brings something very unique to the sphere in general, but certainly.
Well, I think it's also unique that he is, involved in the Red Pill, involved in the convention, speaking his own company. He's also a devout Mormon. Yeah. Like he takes his beliefs very seriously, which I respect.
He's got 4 kids.
Exactly.
We hung when we were at the
3 or 4. I think it's 3.
I think he's got 4 now.
Oh, I don't know. He'll probably have.
I don't want to give you more kids than you have.
Yeah, if he doesn't yet, he will soon.
My wife and I hung out with him quite a bit in the off hours, and just we talk about a good guy who's family oriented.
He brought his wife last year too.
Yeah, he did. Yep. And then my wife and his wife went off and did things, I think.
Yep. Next up on the list is the Red Man Group star, Married Red Pill star, Ryan Stone.
Okay, let's talk shit about Ryan now.
Yeah, the Charlton Heston of the Red Pill.
The Charlton Heston
of the Married Red Pill.
Do we really need to introduce Ryan? Ryan is he's still the admin at Married Red Pill?
One of them.
One of the admins at Married Red Pill on the Reddit. Married Red Pill Reddit.
I think it's Married Red Pill, yeah.
Yeah. And if you don't know who Ryan is and you want to get a deeper understanding of just who Ryan is as a person, you need to watch the Red Man Group because he's on pretty much every one that we've had. Yep. He presented last year, and I shouldn't give him short shrift here. I think I told you about him last year. I said he would be a good speaker for this. And again, here's a guy who brings a different aspect of his own perspective, because he's not married. He's
common law married.
He's common law married in Canada right now.
Yep.
And if I would say that there is a red pill definition of marriage, he's got it. He's living it right now, and doing it on his terms, and it seems to be working out very well for him.
Yep.
That's not all that he's about, but he is a great guy to talk to about guys who have been awakened while married. Mm-hmm. He's a great guy to talk to if you are going through a divorce, because a lot of the guys who are part of that group were previous divorce guys, or they were in dead bedrooms, or they're sexless marriages. Yep. A really good guy to get if you have specific questions as a red pill guy, a red pill wear man, and you're married, or you're even thinking about getting married, or maybe you got divorced, or you're in that aspect or that phase of your life. Right. Well, I think he's a great guy to talk to.
He's very well connected. Like I saw the other day, he sent you a bunch of links. He's like very well connected with like where to find specific information for that stuff.
Yeah. He will help you out if he can refer lawyers to you, and he's really good about that kind of stuff. And then he's just a character to begin with.
Yeah.
I mean, if you've seen Red Man Group, you already know who Ryan is, and you get his personality. So.
Yep. Before we go any further in the list, I want to announce that Hypnotica, Eric Von Sydow, is actually just confirmed to speak at the convention this year.
Nice.
So he's coming back to the event.
That's great.
Not on the list yet, but he'll be on the page later today. We'll add him to the site. He's very old school, like we were talking about before the show started.
Yeah, he's from the game. He's from Mystery Method.
I think he had his own chapter, maybe Rasputin.
He had a different name in there. He went by something else.
Yep.
Another guy who is very focused on fitness. Right.
In his own life, but not during the speech. I don't
what is he going to talk about? What did he talk about last year?
I don't actually. I listened to only 5 minutes of it.
I saw his speech, and from what I can gather, I'm trying. Gosh, I saw so many people talking. I always thought it was like he was more about health and fitness kind of guy.
No, I mean in his own life, I believe, and he does talk about that in his coaching, I think.
I for some reason I recall him being about direct game. Am I wrong?
To some extent,
I think he was, because I remember listening to him answering questions when we had the panel afterwards.
Yeah, that's right.
He got into the discussion about direct game with Alan Roger Curry, I think.
Yeah. Probably. Yeah. But one thing I remember from the event, talking to people, listeners talk, was that he was like very strongly well received at the event from everyone. So guys who had no idea about the red pill, who had no idea about pickup, or who were just there from the red pill, were there for your work, were there for the pickup community stuff. Like everybody loved Hypnotica.
I think he would probably be a good guy to ask about what he sees the differences in, say, game from back in the day, from back when.
Oh yeah.
We were talking. Remember, the game was published in 2005.
Yep.
And so all the stuff that happened in the game really happened in 2003, 2002, 2003, 2004, right there, and was then brought into publication. Then I would ask, what do you? I think. Again, this is a good question to ask him, is just say, what changes do you think you've seen in?
And he's been coaching since the 90s.
Yeah, and nothing. He's a coach.
I think early 90s.
Would you call him a pickup artist coach?
I don't think he would at this point, but he's been involved with that community for a long, long time. So but he's a coach. He's a coach for men. Put a simple way to put it. Next up on the list is a personal one that I brought onto the event, Richard Brennan from Spartan Life Coach. Not a huge fan of the life coach term like anyone else in the red pill,
Right.
but if anyone does it justice, he does a good job at it.
Mm-hmm.
He focuses on basically people exiting toxic relationships or currently involved in them.
Oh, good.
Narcissism, cluster B stuff, BPD, shit
Mm-hmm.
like that. He has a YouTube channel. It's about 80, 90,000 subscribers. It's pretty big. And in my opinion, it's one of the best on YouTube for that topic.
Mm-hmm.
For men and women, even exiting relationships like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it does a really good job with that. And I think he's going to be a very good, very big surprise at the event, his speech.
Cool.
We'll see. We'll see how it turns out.
I'm not familiar with him, so that's great.
I'll send you his channel when we get off, get done with the show. Finally on the list is Pat Campbell.
Nice.
Someone you recommended.
Yeah, and but was he last minute? I don't know. I know you wanted to get him on once you started when I started doing his show.
Yep.
Pat is a talk radio host in Tulsa, Oklahoma, working on I think a larger format at this point. I know that there's been talk of him getting syndicated.
Yep.
Really great guy. I just sort of came into working with him over the last. Now it's 3 months.
Did he find you or you found him?
He found me actually.
Okay.
He had like just like Richard Cooper, he had someone refer my book to him, and he read it, and he's got a couple of sons as well. So I think that was really what sort of prompted him to pick it up and really get into it.
I think he has 5 kids.
Yeah. And oddly enough, he has devoted at least 1 hour of his show per week to a talk with me.
Wow.
And so we've been doing that on Friday mornings, the last hour of his show, which is, 7 to 9 Eastern.
And you go on there for an hour straight?
Yeah, I think he's got a 3 or 4 hour show every day, but I'm usually the last hour of Friday's show, depending on where you are. I usually make a post about that, but we talk about, usually we talk about current events. Sometimes we talk about the book. Just depending on what he wants to get into.
Yeah.
And we do it from a red pill perspective.
Yep.
And it's, become one of the more popular segments on his show.
Yeah.
And I'm not making any secrets here. I would very much love to go and do a show with Tom Likas, because I know that he is retiring this year. And so I would very much like to get into doing sort of a regular show in that format that Tom has done. And I think Pat's really sort of picked up on the popularity of the red pill as, something that people want to discuss in a bigger format, in a terrestrial radio format. And the other great thing about Pat is he's been on the Red Man Group. We've had him on once before. Yep. And great speaker.
What I love about him is he's very old school.
Yeah,
very old school. He reminds me of Jim Flanagan, speaker from last year. Mm-hmm. Old school masculinity, devout Catholic from a long time ago. Went to Catholic high school, I think, growing up, all male. I had a conversation with him on the phone a few weeks ago, and that was the first impression I got. Yeah. Like, this guy is...
He knows, he's got the gift of speech for sure. I mean, if you ever hear his voice, you already know that. But,
radio host.
Radio host, was born to be a radio host.
Yeah.
And I think that he is also representative of a demographic of guys right now who are beginning to understand why, or beginning to understand or question, I guess, why we're seeing certain stories. Like, why are we seeing like that? We talked this morning about this kid, I don't want to call him a kid, this 30-year-old guy who just got evicted from his parents' home.
They had to sue him.
We're talking about it. So there's one, that's one facet of, I think, the kind of social dysfunction that guys like this see. They go, why on earth would this guy even still, because like for you and I, we understand because this guy's part of this Lost Boys generation. Yeah. But for a guy like that in that demographic, it's like, it seems very strange for why, because I got out of the house when I was 19. I went on, my parents said, here's your bags and take on, that kind of old school shit. Yeah. And so seeing that and explaining to that demographic, to that audience, it helps me because I think in a different way when I have to do show prep with him. Like, I'm thinking, okay, if I'm presenting like some of my ideas in my books to someone who's never heard of the red pill or has never heard of the manosphere or has never heard of the rational male, how would I explain, this situation? How would I explain these high school shooters, killing their girlfriend, because they got rejected by a girlfriend? How would I go ahead and explain that? And I've been personally doing it for years now, but I have to always kind of look at it with new eyes when I go into a different venue. Like even just for my own speech for the 21 convention,
Okay.
I have to approach that from a perspective that people who are going to view that video
That's right.
are never going to, you know, maybe they've heard of me, maybe they haven't, maybe they want to see what I have to say, maybe they just happened upon whatever.
Well, as a speaker too, you have to balance that with the live audience who is like very dedicated
so
to the convention.
there's a definite talent in there. But I think that when I do that show with Pat, it causes me to sort of break out of my thought patterns, my routines, because I'm trying to think of what new eyes would think of when I'm trying to explain something. So there's that. And you're right. He's very much old school. And I really like that aspect about him.
Me too.
I think that we need to have, if this is going to be a Red Pill Summit, we need to have guys who like who span the breadth of knowledge, but also I think an age range is important too. So if you've got a guy, I would very much like to get a speaker who is, 18, 19, 20 years old. And I'd like to get a guy who's 65 years old.
It's hard to find speakers that
who knows
age.
who got their shit together enough to really talk about that kind of thing. But maybe have a younger speaker who maybe is just asking the right questions. They don't necessarily have to have this, lordly knowledge of whatever it is that they're talking about, or maybe they can just relate their experiences. I would love to find a kid like 16, 17 years old who's in high school, who is dealing with who's read my book and is dealing with what these high school shooters are dealing with. They're dealing with what incels are dealing with, because you and I have never had to deal with this kind of stuff when I didn't even have the internet when I was in high school.
We had MySpace, but no Facebook yet.
Yeah, exactly. So what is that guy going through? And I think that even if the guy is young and he's in, he's green around the edges or whatever, I think that he would still bring the right questions so that we can think about it in different ways. So.
That's good. I'm actually going to keep that in mind going forward.
Yeah, get a younger guy and get an older guy too. Get a guy who's in his 70s. Yeah. And say, what do you see that's happened here? Yep. And because I think every man's experience is really what it needs to be about.
Well, what I like about older men too, you're barely 50, but even you and Pat Campbell and Jim Flanagan, these guys, you remember a time in America when not only the political discourse was different, but the culture was different. Mm-hmm. The gender relations were different. Dating was different. Marriage was different. You remember life before no-fault divorce.
Right.
I was born years after.
Yes and no.
When you were a kid.
Yeah, I would have known it then. I was born in 68. No-fault divorce actually was illegal in 69.
In what, California?
In California, at least. Yeah, I know that.
I think it took through the 70s to pick up and become universal.
Well, and that's interesting because I think I've talked about this with Pat a few times, is that we have never known a society that hasn't had no-fault divorce. We have never known a social order that is prior to the sexual revolution. We've never known a social order. We've never known a social order founded on hypergamy that hormonal birth control inspired. Like we've always had the pill. We've always had the pill. Yeah. We've always had, the repercussions of that pill. And like, to me, that's normal. But like when I talked to my mother-in-law, who was, born way long before that, she told me, I can remember she telling me that how scandalous it was that they had instituted sperm banks. And that was it was shocking. And people were protesting, and it was just crazy. And now we don't think twice about it. We think, a woman can go and do whatever she wants now. Yep. And back then, a sperm bank was there to facilitate babies between an already married couple. That's what they billed it as. Wow. Now it's so women who want to stay single, they're deliberately, intentionally be single mothers can do that. Now, is there help for infertile couples? Sure, there is, but it is seen more now as what they were afraid it was going to be seen as. That's right. Back when they first instituted.
It reminds me, you tweeted the other day, maybe 2-3 days ago, the Boy Scouts are giving out condoms now.
Right.
It's like 50 years ago, that would have been fucking unheard of. Not only unheard of, it would have been unthinkable. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. And why are they doing it? Why now? Yeah. Why do we see
It's not even the Boy Scouts ananymw. It's
it's not. It's the Scouts. They don't even call it boy anymore. And that's we can talk all day.
Remove the man. Remove the boy.
Right? Yeah. Do we have any? Look like we got a super chat there.
We got a whole bunch of shit going on.
All right. Let's answer some questions now. We got business done.
Yeah. So guys, with questions, I think you guys have been asking them throughout the chat. It's impossible to keep up. There's a shit ton of them. So if you ask questions now through the chat, I'm going to see them a lot faster.
Yeah,
fire it out.
And what about super chat too? Is that a question?
Yeah, I can. Let's see if I can pull them up. He said, speaking of older speakers, the Private Man was a great loss.
Right. Yeah. And that's why we dedicated that last year's show, the 10th anniversary to him. We made that public, right? The video.
Yeah. This came out recently when on his death anniversary.
Yeah. Yep. And you and I and Goldman and Socrates,
four of us,
and his
girlfriend Tracy
was there as well. Yeah.
Yep. I think she'll be there again this year too. Yep. Did I get Carl, Black Label Logic? No, we did not. Working on kidnapping him.
I want him to be there. Just because, and we should have probably already explained this too, is that just because they're not speaking doesn't mean that they might not be there.
That's right.
I know Christian's going to be there.
Yeah.
Christian McQueen will be there. He won't be speaking, but he will be probably running a seminar and probably running something else.
Or workshop or something.
Yeah. And that's the other thing we should probably make clear is that the speaking aspect of it is the most important part, of course, but there's lots of other things that go on at the convention.
The way I see it, the speaking is like central. Yeah. So it's the reason we're getting together. It's the reason we're filming it, but the surrounding elements are even more important, I think.
Right.
Or at least in terms of engagement, interaction.
Well, I was going to say is that, I'd give you we did some post speaking, videos or podcasts afterwards.
Oh yeah, podcasts and interviews.
But when I was talking in those, I really wanted to stress that there's a lot more going on. I mean, the main event, of course, is the speaking, but there's a lot more going on behind the scenes that are there. The after hours things that are going on. I know that I'm pretty sure he'll do it again, but I know that Christian was running. He had clients there. He had friends that he was going out and clubbing with, and doing his, for lack of a better word, his pickup artist stuff. Yep. And doing what Christian McQueen does. And then Goldman was there as well. Yep. And there you get access to guys that you would, people always say, who would you want to share a beer with? I want to with Rollo. I want to do it with, Christian. This is your chance to go share a beer with them and pick their brains. I think that I did more speaking outside of the convention hall.
Every time I saw you, you were swarmed by half a dozen dudes.
And so it's also an opportunity to talk to guys that in the flesh, and sort of pick their brains about your own particular your own personal situation, as opposed to getting some generalized knowledge, which is what I probably will give you otherwise. Yeah. So there's a lot more going on, and I think we would like to do add some more activities to it, I think.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've had a lot of suggestions from Richard Cooper and other speakers for more workshops, more programs, stuff like that. And at some point, we might do that, maybe this year.
Yeah, that's probably something we should discuss off air. But I think that there should really be some workshops, like some other intensives where if you want to focus on one part or one aspect, if you want to focus on game, if you want to focus on you're getting out of a dead bedroom.
I'm very much down to do it. For me, it's just a thing of quality. The event is super high quality and professional, and I want to make sure everything we do is like that.
That's another thing we need to talk about too.
Sure.
The event venue this year has changed.
Yeah, that's right.
So we're someplace else. It's not at where it was last year.
Yep.
And it is a bigger venue. We're accepting more people this year.
Yeah, I haven't capped it yet, but I'll probably cap it at 200. And as of yet, we've sold a lot of tickets, a couple dozen. And those have come in a lot faster than I thought. Yeah.
And
so it's been fucking awesome.
Like I said, I've been in Florida. I've been driving around and just sort of had my life in upheaval for the last week and a half. When I get back to Reno, which will be Friday, I'll be publishing a post about the convention and where you can get tickets. And if you want to have questions, or if you'd like to even just look up what I was talking about last year, I'll have links to that too. So my official post for it will be by this weekend.
Cool. Yeah, we're actually going to publish your second talk from the convention soon. Yeah. We'll have a few previews up the Q&A thing. Yep.
Yeah, that one was really good. I like that talk because it was more in sort of a Q&A fashion. Yeah. It was a little bit more. I want to give people what it is that they want to hear. If they want to, I don't want to just talk about something and then they go, oh, we didn't talk about hypergamy, or oh, we didn't talk about this. I want to.
You're definitely going to talk about.
I want to be obviously. I want to be able to give people what they want when it comes to, me speaking. Because I understand for some guys, it's a lot of money.
Yep.
When I do counseling, whenever I have guys that hit me up and say, "Hey, I want to work with you," or whatever, can we start something? My format is always sort of pay what you can. I don't do like, oh, here's my hourly for whatever. I say, you know what, if you can pay me X amount, fine. If you can only pay me this, that's fine. Because what I figure, and the way I've always thought of this, is that you pay it forward for the next guy. Yeah. So if you're paying me $200 and the next guy that comes along, he can only pay me $25, you balance it out, and you're helping out your fellow man by doing that, by paying it forward. And then, you make it keeps me honest, keeps them honest. And it also makes it so that I can tell people what I think they need to hear instead of what, oh, I better tell him what he wants to hear to keep him on the hook. I'm never going to do that. I'm going to tell you, if you leave me and you say, hey, screw it, fuck this guy, I'm out. Okay, but I told you what I think you need to hear. I'm not going to pander you. I'm not going to hold your hand.
Well, it reminds me of the convention too, the paying it forward thing, because the ticket price is expensive.
Yeah, it is.
Depending on who you're talking to, but most people find $1,000 minimum. That's early bird.
Yeah, and then you got to pay flight out here. You got to pay for your hotel and everything else. So it has to be really, really worth it. Worth your while. And I think.
But it also supports the mission of the company in terms of free to the world.
Right.
These videos go out. Your video is about to hit 100,000 views any day.
Right.
And that's 100,000 men, 98% men. And within a year or two, it'll be 200,000, 300,000, 400,000, 500,000. And that's, eventually millions of men. And
that is more conversation. That's more conversation that's happening. Now, when I go and flip through the comments, it's like, you're always going to have trolls. But I think that it's going, with that many people seeing, and I'm not just my own video, but like Richard Cooper or whoever else, they're seeing these videos and it's sparking conversations, even if it's a private conversation between two guys or people who are on that in Twitter or in the comment threads, that kind of stuff. And that's what's important to me. And that's why I always say that, I understand that it's not as expensive as a lot of other, places I could name, but I'm not going to. But I get that, and I want to give as much value as I possibly can at this.
And you do.
That's always been my mission statement.
You did an excellent example, in my opinion. I don't know if I told you this, but as a speaker, you, Alan Roger Curry, and many others at the event, you actually stayed at the entire event. You were there from start to finish. You saw probably 90% of the talks.
At least, all the ones that I could see, I saw.
Yep, and you were very interactive with the attendees, which I don't, mandate. You can do whatever you want.
Most of the people that I missed at the convention, their speaking was because I was out in the hall talking to other guys.
Yep. But I love that, and the attendees love it too. What I was saying though, the ticket, though, is in a way, your ticket when you come to the convention, it's an investment in yourself. It's improving your life. It could be a trip, vacation, however you want to spin it. But you're also supporting education through videos of millions of men.
And it's a lot of fun. You're meeting guys who are, one of the most frequent questions I'm asked is like, okay, I've read your book. How do I go forward with this? How do I do something with this? I wish there was a like-minded group of guys that I could get together and we could talk about this kind of stuff.
What's the good version? The bad version is like, why don't you tell me what to do, Rollo?
That's the good version. And then the other people say, how come you don't have a 12-step thing for me to follow so that I can have a perfect life?
I don't want to think. Just tell me what to do.
I don't know. But I'm happy to say that if you really want that organization, it's at this convention. You're going to meet guys there. I met guys from, I believe it was Phoenix, Arizona, who were talking about creating a quote unquote rational male, group of guys.
I know a guy who did it in St. Louis.
Yeah, that's right. And then another guy, in St. Louis. And so they take it upon themselves, and that's why I wrote the book. That's why I want you to have the print copy of it so you can get together and go do things with dudes. Richard Cooper and I are talking about doing something sort of an entrepreneurs type thing. And that's one thing that I would like to do with him. I also want to, like I said, when we started this, I'm planning on doing a forum of guys so that there's sort of a interactive discussion on different topics. Because if I'm writing something on the blog, it might not be something that is specific to that guy, right? And they don't want to go back to something I wrote in 2012 and then try to get a comment thing going from then. And so I'm going to start sort of a very understated forum and see where it goes from there. That's one thing I want to do. And then I'm always encouraging guys, man. Once you read my stuff, and if it's changed your life, if it's done something, pass it on and have that discussion. And if you put together a group, make sure that you do something with that group. Like get a bunch of guys who like to go fishing, get a bunch of guys who like to go shooting to a shooting range, get a bunch of guys who like to go snowmobiling. We're going shark fishing after this, because women talk and men do. And the way that men communicate is they have to be doing something. And there's a lot of people I would like to teach that lesson to, is that men need a project, men need purpose to do something so that they can communicate. Whereas women communicate like this. Men communicate like this. And we talk out when we're watching the game, where when we talk like that, that's how men communicate. And that's a real, it's kind of funny, but I mean, it's just the dynamics in communication between men and women. And I think that one of the reasons that men's groups fail is because they're men's groups, because they're like, the whole express purpose of the guys getting together is just to go, we're going to talk about our feelings.
Yeah, Fight Club style.
We're not don't do that. Shit. Go fishing. Go do something that you all enjoy. I mean, build a car.
What that brings to mind, though, is it's either that or women infiltrate the group.
Yes.
In which case,
yes, and then you're talking about like Married Man Sex Life, and you're talking about like groups that started out with the right purpose and then they were male spaces that got infiltrated.
Something I'm very on guard for.
We got anything else going on?
Yeah, we have a number of questions. Here's a specific one from Tobias Engel. Rollo, do you believe an LTR is in itself a healthy goal?
A healthy goal? It depends. Is it a healthy goal? It depends on where you are in life. It depends on who that woman is that you're having an LTR with. I think that in the long term, it could be a healthy goal. It depends on the guy and what that guy wants for his life. I think that just even asking that question, what do you want for your life? Do you want to have a long-term relationship, or do you not want to? What I think is ironic about that is that we don't ask women that. We don't say, why don't you, what do you want to, is it a healthy goal for a woman to have a long-term relationship? Because when a woman gets to be 35 years old and she's unmarried and she has no kids and she's wondering where all the good guys are and what happened to all of them, and she's looking back on the decisions that she made in her life, well, we excuse that away and we say, hey, she was focusing on her career, or she just wasn't ready for that yet, or she was trying to have it all.
Well, she's getting a PhD in gender studies.
Exactly. And so we don't put that question to women so much because we think of women in terms of like their professionality, or we want to give them the benefit of the doubt, where we don't want to give men the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
At least that's how it's changed. I mean, remember, it wasn't like that before. If a woman did not have a husband and some babies by the time she was like 24, 25 years old back in the day,
it was really weird.
It was really weird. And it was also really weird for guys not to as well, because it usually meant either the guy was gay or something wrong with the guy.
Damn.
And marriage back then, back in the old social contract, was something that made a man a man. If you're a husband and a father, and you go to work 9 to 5 and you come home and you do your job, and it was that sort of nuclear family idea, and that shit is gone now. But those old stigmas still stick with us. Is it a healthy goal for a man to have an LTR? Yes, if it's a healthy LTR, if it's something that guy wants, if it's something that is on his terms, if it is something where his frame is the one that is the dominant frame in that relationship.
Well, let's advance the question, something I'll add in here. What do you think about this question that he'd asked with relation to K selection and R selection? So gene theory.
We have, in some ways, I think R and K selection theory apply to men and women. And in other ways, I think that it's kind of overblown, or maybe it's a little bit too reductionist. I do, but only in not with R and K specifically. Okay. Remember, R and K selection is really from biology, textbooks. It's out of it's meant to describe the mating strategies of different mammals. The mating strategy of a rabbit is to have as many babies as possible and not worry about investing so much in those young, and let them go off because they're going to get eaten by hawks or whatever. Whereas, human beings have to focus on raising a child from infancy to at least, self-sufficiency of some sort. And you're talking about two different selections. A lot of people like to make the idea, turn it out as if, women don't need men anymore for that parental investment responsibility anymore. So that, I think, is erroneous. I think that men definitely are not superfluous, and I think that fathers are absolutely necessary in the raising process. But if we're going to accept that, then we can't really accept I'm going to say it's the K, I'm pretty sure it's the K theory, that women aren't interested in that anymore, because I might be getting these mixed up. The R selection theory is that, men have the R selection. It's like we want to spread our seed as quick as we can. We want to have sex with as many, unlimited access to unlimited sexuality is the masculine imperative, or the male sexual biological imperative. And there's always going to be there's going to be that trade-off or that compromise, because for women, if a woman gets pregnant, then she has to invest a lot into that. So
it's a huge life
that
event. Sexual
strategy that women have, which is hypergamy, has been evolved over the years because of a different evolved dynamic. Because hypergamy came around long before the sexual revolution and hormonal birth control. So now we have taken away the beta buck side of hypergamy. So what's left? Alpha fucks is the only thing that's left.
Yep.
So what does that do? Well, it means men have to focus more on their appearance. It means they have to be more arousing. They have to, God forbid, they don't get a woman who isn't enthusiastically consenting to have sex with them anymore. Yeah. And I think it's interesting that we're having a conversation now between transactional sex and validational sex in an era that I do have a post about. But that was prompted by the enthusiastic consent laws that are going on right now.
Someone said Rollo Tomassi deserves the Nobel Prize.
I think so.
It's a toss-up between Trump and Rollo.
Well, that depends. A Nobel Prize in what? In literature and science?
Gender relations.
I think that...
there's some truth to that.
And I don't gloss myself here, but I think that... I really... A lot of the stuff that I talk about isn't necessarily something that you couldn't find in evolutionary psychology. It's not something you couldn't find in Evo Bio even. Yeah. I mean, it's just that I connect the dots that people are unwilling to connect the dots to. So recently, and I'm going to go and throw this out there as a book recommendation, but everybody knows that one of my favorite Evo Psych researchers is Marty Hasselton, and she's got a great book out called Hormonal right now, where she goes into the specifics of pretty much what I went into in my first talk at last year's convention, which was hypergamy, micro to macro. Yep. And what I'm doing really is I'm taking a lot of the stuff that she is saying and I'm applying it to game fundamentals. I'm applying it to, I'm just basically crossing the divide that she's unwilling to cross. She doesn't want to make those connections by saying, hey, well, maybe one of the reasons that we have a feminine primary social order right now is because we've been focusing so damn much on hypergamy and making sure that women's hypergamy is optimized in every possible conceivable way that we can make it right now. Yep. She's not going to make that connection. I'll make that connection.
Well, it's unflattering if
and of course, why? Because it's unflattering to women, and that's one of the reasons why I have a real problem with red pill women who say that they're red.
I just got banned from the subreddit the other day. Red pill women subreddit.
Yeah. Well, welcome to the club. I got banned from a long time ago. And my stuff is in the my stuff is still in the sideboard for the red pill, but I'm banned from the red pill women.
You're banned from a woman, but didn't you do an Emma on there? Did you do a question and answer on the red pill woman? Or no?
No, I don't think I ever did, but I have. Okay. I have been known to go and repost blog posts that I have there because I think that they are pertinent to the conversation there. Yep. And of course, they don't want to hear that because red pill women only take the parts of the red pill that they find flattering to themselves. Yep. And then they think anything else is just those red pill guys being misogynist.
Yeah, so I got banned. I left one comment, instant ban. I was like, well, fuck this place.
So they're happy. Like if I go and I say, well, brain scans show that women's neurological wiring predisposes them to better communication. I say, they're better at subcommunication. They're better at talking. We're just talking about each other. If I'm looking at you, I'm communicating. Women get together just to talk, right? Men don't because we don't have that kind of wiring.
Unless there's a webcam.
We don't have that mental firmware as our predisposition. If I say that, women go, yeah, that's right. All women are like that, right? Yep. They're happy to say that. And I say, well, all women are hypergamous and they're into alpha flux and beta bucks. And here's why they're duplicitous in X, Y, and Z. And I say that, and I show them, here's the brain scans to show why, or here's the research to empirically prove why. That's when they have a problem with that.
That's right.
So if it's flattering to the feminine, they're happy to accept it. If it's not, then they're like, not all women are.
Well, some speculation on my part. You're uncovering the parts that they don't want uncovered. Those are the dualistic elements.
Well, yeah, and then I should say this because a lot of women think that I'm unfair to them when it comes to that. I run men up the flagpole just as much.
Oh yeah.
Especially when it comes to, we were just talking about incels not too long ago.
Dude.
I mean, I talk about that.
Some of our old speakers even just look at the red pill in your work and it just triggers the shit out of them.
Yeah, of course. The purple pill guys who are the life coach purple pill guys follow along in that same pattern that women do. They take whatever is flattering for women from the red pill and use that in their coaching.
That's right.
And then anything that is not flattering or anything that would lead to any of their clients leaving them, they disregard that and they say, "Oh, well, that's misogyny. That's just those guys. They're just bitter, burned guys." And it's easy to fall back on that because women want to hear that.
Yep. Yeah, we got a bunch of super chats.
All right.
Thanks for the super chats, guys. Not a question, but a comment from the super chat. The rational male made it clear to me why the game with a blue pill mindset is a recipe for depression or even suicide.
Mm-hmm.
The price tag for the convention attracts the men who want to get real about this. I think you're right, and I appreciate the super chat.
I should say so. I won't name names, but just sort of a cold bucket of truth for me from last year's convention it was actually the guys that I was on the flight from Phoenix with. It was funny because I was there and I was talking to my wife and she was referring to me as Rollo. And so the guys who were in front of me were like, "Hey, we're going to this convention," and just kind of beating around the bush with me, trying to see if that I'm Rollo Tomassi. And one of the guys who was there was a commenter on my blog. And he was one of these guys who was married and just gave up hope and had no idea because he was still stuck in his blue pill paradigm. He was simply giving up hope on living the kind of life, like the idealized life that the blue pill had, blue pill conditioning had led him to believe was ever going to be possible for him. He was staring down at, divorce. He had actually made plans to kill himself. He had set a date to kill himself.
Damn.
And this is what he told me, because he looked me straight in the eyes. He says, "I came to this so that I could look you straight in the eye and tell you, thank you for saving my life, because I had set a date for it. I wanted to make sure that no one was inconvenienced. I wanted to make sure that, that all my life insurance was set up. I wanted to make it look like an accident, so it didn't look like it was suicide, and that, and actually he was really describing to me about how he wanted to turn himself into a statistic because he had no understanding of what he was going through. He had no understanding about the blue pill and being cut away from that.
Well, it's interesting how his whole process, though, is very logical and deductive. I'm going to do this,
very
this,
much
this,
so.
this,
and I got into it recently in one of my posts about male suicide and why it's 5 times the height, the average of women. And men are very practical when it comes to suicide. They like I said, this guy is one example of many. I know guys who have told me that they wanted to kill themselves in such a way as to make it look like an accident so that their kids would be set up. They didn't want to inconvenience them. From guys doing that to guys who were putting down, a blanket on the hardwood floor so they wouldn't get blood all over the place when they shot themselves.
God.
I mean, this is the kind of stuff that I'm dealing with day after day. And, I would say probably during a week, I'm probably good for at least 4 or 5 guys, telling me, thank you for saving my life. And that's really what I mean, if I had a mission statement, if I had a point of what I wanted to do, I mean, everybody knows the story about my brother-in-law who killed himself. That was really sort of, if I had a red pill moment that sort of woke me up to what I needed to do and right-wise, that was it. If I can prevent that, if I can help to stop something like that, and if I can do it in such a way that, opens guys' eyes, because I really wish I would have been able to, in hindsight, I probably could have told my brother-in-law everything that I know right now. I don't think he would have ever accepted it because he was too far gone in his blue pill conditioning. But if I can reach those guys before they get to that point,
10 years before it,
and say, look, you can live a better life. And I've got so many guys right now that are they're just saying, hey man, just because of this chapter or these 2 chapters or what you said here that opened my eyes up to other things in my life, And I started living differently. And it's not because I turned them into pickup artists or I taught them game or something. I said, the reason your wife does X, Y, and Z is because of A, B, and C.
Yep.
And they go, oh my God. And they change their behavior and they do it on their own. That's why I say I'm prescriptive. I'm descriptive. I'm not prescriptive. Yep. And so it's my opinion that guys need to take what I write and really not just what I write, but what other people write in the manosphere, speakers as well, and take that and apply it to their own situations, because every guy is unique and every guy has his own individualized experience. Just in the same way that I want to hear what your experience is so that I can put it to the aggregate of the red pill, you have to understand that your individuality is, your situation is unique to yourself, and you are the only one who knows what that is. So I can go and talk to a guy who's 70 years old and say, I think you should do X, Y, and Z, but I'm only giving him my suggestions because I'm not 70. I haven't lived through any of that. I've never been divorced. I've never done.
Well, you're giving him tools basically.
Yeah.
That he can use.
Yeah, exactly. So what I do is I give tools and I let guys save their own lives. Like I've always said, I'm not in the business of making better men. I'm in the business of men making themselves better men and giving them the tools to help them do that. And it seems to be bearing fruit. I'm glad.
We'll need to wrap up soon, but we got a super chat from Awakened Mind, and his question after that, Rollo, how do you advise your teenage daughter on red pill truth?
Oh, there we go. Yeah, you guys are going to ask me that right before I had to leave. But I apologize. I was in Alabama in the middle of a rainstorm.
You were driving in the rain.
I was like, I think it's time to go.
I was amazed you even hopped on the show.
Yeah.
Like driving a U-Haul truck.
In hindsight, I probably shouldn't have done that, but I wanted to just. I was so bored.
Yeah, I thought it was cool.
So what do I do? What's the question again? It was like, what do I do with my daughter?
How do you advise your teenage daughter on red pill truth?
How do I advise her now? Like, you mean directly advise her? Because I look at where my daughter is in life right now, being 20 years old, and the decisions that she makes and the people that she interacts with and the young men that she interacts with right now. I see that as a direct result of being a red pill parent for most of her life, well, really all of her life, and setting that example for her. I get into this in positive masculinity and the parenting side of it, which, by the way, also astonished me because that ended up being like for a while, it was the #1 selling book on parenting or fatherhood or something on Amazon? Like that back in August.
That's awesome.
And then it was #1 on parenting sons for 8 weeks after that. So that was again flattering, but so it wasn't just a fluke. It was just, it wasn't just algorithms. It was.
Well, it sounds to me like what you're saying is children, male or female, they watch what you do, not what you say.
Yes, and I think that if you have a daughter and you're a red pill guy, molding the image of masculinity for them, you're going to be doing that anyways. So you might as well be doing it from a perspective of insisting on your own frame, or being a positively masculine guy who is decisive, who makes decisions, who isn't deferring to mommy all the time, who isn't deferring to the feminine, who still takes care of his shit. But I think it's very important. And I wrote about this in Positive Masculinity. I think that guys need to understand that women are the ones that are going to be modeling feminine gender roles, or feminine. The model of femininity is going to be set by the woman, and the model for masculinity is going to be set by the man. That can be a blessing or a curse. Yeah. So if you're a weak beta male father, you're going to be setting that as the example, and so stereotypically a more dominant mother figure who's making the decisions and calling the shots, and is the one that the daughter defers to for authority. It's not going to be daddy, it's going to be mommy. What is that woman going to, when that daughter becomes a woman, what is she going to be, or what is she going to expect from men when she gets to be, of age? I guess.
She saw that as an example too of how to be a woman.
So, and exactly,
which is an inverted dominance hierarchy.
And that's one of the reasons I have a problem with single parents, is that, especially for women, because remember, 42% of births today are born out of wedlock. They are single, and most of them are single mother households. Yeah. And what that means is that mother has to be the role model, or the gender role model for masculinity and femininity. And that's why we praise single mothers right now because we're not going to praise anything that's masculine right now. We just simply can't go that far. Masculinity is toxic right now. I mean, haven't you heard? But I think that the fact that a woman would be a single mother and presume that she could model a masculine role better than a father, I think that is like the height of women's hubris right now, to think that they could do that, to think that a man's influence in that kid's life is superfluous. And what I mean by that is we talk a really good game about fatherhood these days, and Father's Day is coming up pretty soon. So I think it's interesting to sort of be a little bit more mindful of what's going on around you and how we think about fathers, because this is the occasion for it, right?
Okay.
And so when we have a mother who thinks she can do it all, she's modeling the masculine and she's modeling the feminine, and she's basically, what she's saying, the message that she's putting out there is that I'm everything. I can be the man and I can be the woman. Yep. And we would never, ever think that a man could be a mother for a child, because men are, for masculinity right now is, at the very best, masculinity is ridiculous. It's never seen in a positive light. It is always seen as either toxic or it is ridiculous.
Until there's a problem.
Until there's a problem, right? And so, yeah, exactly. So we always think of fathers as being superfluous, that they're nice to have around, but they're not really all that necessary. Now, that's in spite of all this research that says men are very much necessary. I'm reading a book now by Dr. Warren Farrell and the guy from Men Are From Mars. Forget that guy. I'm not a fan of either of these guys, but I am a fan of the research that they do, because the statistics of the boy crisis right now is just. That's another book I would definitely put out as a recommendation right now. But we think of fathers as being superfluous when in fact they are very much necessary. But we still, as our social consciousness and popular consciousness, we think of fathers as just being, if they're there, great. If they're not, oh well, until a kid acts out, until, as statistically proven, the kids are more likely to be criminals. The kids of single mothers are more likely to be delinquent, more likely to have sex earlier, more likely to have unplanned pregnancies. That's why I said read the boy crisis, because I'm just basically quoting stats from that book right now.
Even Ann Coulter has a whole thing on this. She's known for criticizing this.
And you look at and so a man is superfluous until the kid is a criminal, and then what's the conversation? Then it's where's this kid's father? And then they want to blame, because men are great for having as scapegoats, but they're superfluous in any other context.
I'm curious to see what you think about this. The way it's looking now, toxic masculinity has now become all masculinity is toxic. Right. We've seen a transformation.
I made that prediction back when we did the first one. Remember when we had the Las Vegas shooting? That happened when we were at the convention. Yep. And right after that was all of these articles started showing up saying that it's no longer toxic masculinity. It's masculinity itself is toxic and it needs to be obliterated.
Well, here's what I'm wondering.
Abolished.
In the coming years, it looks like the culture is set up to not only hate masculinity to that extent, that's universal. How much longer till fatherhood is hated universally? Yeah. Because right now it's seen as superfluous.
It's just all you are is, as soon as they can find some way to reproduce without, it's funny. I got accused this morning on Pat Campbell's show of wanting to have Stepford wives, like us red pill guys, we just want to have Stepford wives. We want to have these perfect little, sex robots, which is ironic considering the fact that we're working on sex robots right now. Why? Because we want to avoid these, incel incidents, and
no one wants to go to prison.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody wants to go to prison. And so I'm going to get called that, but in the same token, we want to, we want to end men. We want to make men obsolete. Yeah. In fact, I can point you to articles that are titled "The End of Men" and "Are Men Obsolete?" Because there is such a belief that from a feminine side that from a feminine primary social order is preferable to anything else. Yeah. And and completely ignoring the fact that the reason that we're here in the society we're in today is because men have built that society and men have put it together. We have facilitated the ability for women to complain about men is what we've done.
In a country built by men.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Last question, then we'll have to wrap up.
Okay.
Head over to Cocoa Beach. This is from Motive, Super Chat. Thank you for the Super Chat. Question is, do either of you think that the anger from breaking away from the blue pill can be parlayed into effective game? Think like a Byronic trait. I don't know what he means by that last part.
Can the anger of breaking away from the blue pill be turned into more effective?
My opinion is,
can you use it to incentivize you? Yeah, sure, you can use it.
The Donovan Sharp style.
You can,
the anger.
Well,
the aggression.
Let's put it this way. I don't think that I am alone in this, but like whenever I've gone through a breakup, I've been that much more motivated in the gym. Yeah. I mean, you use that anger to motivate.
I was out banging a porn star after my divorce.
Yeah, exactly. It'll motivate you to get into something else because.
Yep.
I also should clarify this too, because a lot of guys I think we're talking about two different things, because when guys break away from the blue pill, maybe it's not so much because of a breakup. It might be. That's most commonly. That's why that was my first thought. But really, what men tend to be angry at is themselves and not at women, and that gets misconstrued constantly in the manosphere, because women want to see that anger. They want to see like an Elliot Rodgers. They want to see this guy, what's his name, Alec Minajian, whatever. They want to see that in other guys. They want to see that anger and that craziness in them, because they want to be able to associate that with the red pill, and they want to associate that with the manosphere and those. They don't even know. They don't know what else to call it, so they say, those MRA guys.
Yeah, they call us MRAs. Yeah. But at the same time, women are attracted to dark triad personality traits, aggression, all kinds of things. Dominance.
That's one of the reasons that when guys break up with their wives, their wives suddenly take interest in them again, because they're standing up for themselves, and they've they've said, fuck it, I got nothing to lose, and so they do things that they never would have done.
Whoever I want.
They do things that they never would have done while they were married, and suddenly that is what is very attractive about them. I think that cutting yourself away from the blue pill, there's always going to be anger, because that's going to be a phase. But what female and feminized critics don't really understand, don't really relate with, is that the anger is not directed at women. It is directed at the guy himself. It is the guy wanting to get back that time that he lost. It's a guy, think of it this way. You got a guy who's 20, let's just say, for the sake of example, you got a guy who's 28 years old, and suddenly he goes red pill. And for the last 10 years, well, let's say since he was 18, he's been making all of these decisions based on this blue pill, ideological, Disney bullshit that he's believed for so very long. And he's actually suffered the consequences of that. Maybe, he's gone through a divorce. Maybe he's gone through, God knows whatever he's gone through, personal issues. And then
even the trauma of seeing
your
brother-in-law.
You wake him up as a red pill guy, and you say, sorry, dude, you've been living your life wrong for the last 10 years. And let me show you all of the reasons why. And that guy's not angry at the women, because women are just going to do what they're going to do, because that you're just basically saying, here's why women did here's why she did what she did. And here's why your ideas when it comes to your blue pill conditioning is wrong. And the guy goes, oh my God, you're right. And they realize this, and then they get pissed off. And I'm not saying it's always directed at women, but usually is directed at men. It's usually directed at themselves, because they go, why didn't I see this sooner? I can't believe I wasted 10 years of my life with this. I just wasted all my 20s by doing all this shit. The prime of my life is now gone because I believed in this bullshit. And I would be very, very
Well, if they read The Rational Male, they'll learn the prime of their life is in their 30s.
That is why I wrote Preventive Medicine. So guys could, I had so many guys hit me up and say, I wish I had this sooner. I wish I would have known this one, before I got married. I wish I would have known this before I made these decisions. That's why preventive medicine is there, to help you make those decisions.
With the anger too, a lot of it is self-directed, to be mad at yourself for getting lied to. But a lot of it, I feel too, guys get mad, and to some degree, justifiably so, at the culture that lied to them for so long and so consistently.
Right. Yeah, and that too. And then
the blue pill's a lie.
To be upset, to be upset with them, to be to realize your role in what you've been raised into,
and your friends and your brothers and your cousins.
I think that if there's a silver lining to that, it is that at least now you're away from that. At least now you know better, and you got no excuses from here on out. And you at least were thoughtful and insightful and introspective enough to listen to what people told you about the red pill and what, to become red pill aware, to understand the natures of women, to understand intersexual dynamics, to understand the natures of men too. And all that. I don't want to I can't just point, one finger here. It goes, red pill goes across a lot of different arenas, but, you're going to be pissed off. You're going to be pissed off at the society that is dependent upon that, is dependent on you staying, I think this reminds me of one of my most controversial posts was called Betas in Waiting. And the reason that it was controversial is because I followed boys from 5 years old being taught all of these Disney, deferences to girls, and to let the warrior princess, shine through, and one of the reasons Jordan Peterson has a problem with Frozen is because it is just this complete abomination when it comes to gender roles. If there has never been a more insidious purveyor of the blue pill than Disney. Disney, every single movie is the same narrative. It is the same message.
And I think that complicitness is what pisses guys off. So it's widespread and implicit.
In that post, what I do is I follow guys like from age 5 all the way up to say like about when they're about 29 to 30, because that's when I usually call the epiphany phase for women. So this blue pill conditioning keeps you ignorant to all of this, all of the things that, the game that's being played around you while you're not really
the Sandbergian plan,
the Sandbergian plan, for hypergamy. That's what, if I was going to say there's a matrix, that's what it's you being a part of that, I would call it a plan, but being part of that scheme, or being part of the path that they would have you be, because there's a vested interest for women and the feminine imperative to keep you as ignorant as possible.
Almost like a cow on a slaughtering line.
Yeah,
you're
exactly.
Just like right down the line.
Until you get right up until you're about 28 to 30 years old. And then suddenly, women need you to be the nice, dependent, loyal guy after she's done with her party. And I read about this in Preventive Medicine.
You see on Tinder all the time.
And
so put it right there.
But these guys are betas in waiting. They wait into their turn. They wait, and they do whatever the old social contract has told them to do. It makes them, they think that their ship has come in by the time a woman is in her epiphany phase and saying, I really want to get right with God, and I really want to, I'm done with bad boys. I've learned my lesson. I want a really nice
I hate guys that lie.
Yeah, I was so crazy in my college days.
Oh my God.
I was such a different person back then. And, basically all this stuff that they're trying to self-excuse, their past lives or the past decisions that they've made. And conveniently, that happens right about the time when they need men the most. And they need those guys, those nice guys, those blue pill conditioned guys, to still be nice. That's one of the reasons why women right now at 35 get so upset, because they say, where are the nice guys? How come I'm 35? I can't find any nice guys. Well, that's because, first of all, you waited too long. And then second of all, the guys who are there are becoming more and more aware of their role and are unplugging, whether it's by me or it's by just, open hypergamy or whatever the social order is doing, just by observation right now. And so these betas in waiting who are supposed to be there for them aren't there anymore. And so so what do? We have to shame them. We have to say they're kid adults, or they didn't plan their lives according to the plan, because the plan was to be there for me because you're a beta and you're in waiting.
Well, that's exactly why we get so much hate too. We're stopping that process.
We're a threat because we are making men aware of their sexual value, their sexual market value. We're like, if I'm going to say, look, if I'm telling guys, don't worry about being monogamous in your 20s, because you will have a better prospect for sexual selection when you get to be your 30s, when you have established yourself, because it takes longer for men to establish themselves, to establish yourself in your work, just maturity wise. You still look good. Maybe you don't look as good as you did when you were 25 as you do when you're 35. Okay. But if you handle your shit.
Take
You're
care of
still there.
yourself.
Men, when they get older, still look really good, even up into their 50s and 60s and 70s. I mean,
women often like older men anyway.
Yeah.
That 7-10 year gap.
Well, there's a 5 to 7 year gap that women find attractive. They're always looking for a guy who's their senior. They're not looking for one who is their junior, unless they are divorced and they're looking to rekindle that old cougar.
Or they have other psychological issues going on with dominance.
So when I tell guys something like that, and I say, look, hold out until you get to be 34, 35, 36 years old, and you get into what I say is your sexual market value peak, it upsets that plan, and it becomes a threat because it's making guys aware. That's why I always say, why do my eyes hurt? Well, because you've never used them before. Well, when I'm opening guys' eyes to what's going on around, that's why we use the Matrix analogy.
If I'm not mistaken, I think it was Ed Lattimore who first said that your work is like teaching slaves how to read. How to read. Yeah. Holy shit.
In fact, I even got a post about that too. I thought that was great.
When I saw that, I was like, holy shit.
Yes, it's teaching slaves how to read. And that's why I also wrote Betas in Waiting, because I want guys to know that this is the order. This is what they have planned for you. And don't play a party to that, because you need to be the one who is making your selections and making informed decisions for yourself at the best time of your life where you have the most sexual selection. And that is usually between 34 and 36 years old. And you can make a better selection, because that is the time at which women are their most necessitous. They're at their most necessitous right around 29 to 31 years old, which is what I call the epiphany phase. So that is why I say hold out. And hold off. I'm not saying, monogamy is horrible, or is there anything good about an LTR? Well, we can talk about that, but let's get to the point where you have established yourself and put yourself together as best you possibly can, because you're hitting your stride when you get to your 34, 35, 36 years old.
I always find it funny too. These guys ask you these questions about LTRs and stuff. You've been in one for 20 something years, so some context.
Yeah, I mean, I take all this shit for being controversial and saying, look. Maybe your vulnerability and your rapport and your comfort and all of this stuff that you've been told for so long is what women really want. And they want this security, and they want this beta buck side of hypergamy. They
want to vomit, but love it.
Well, when I say that and women get upset about that, because I'm basically saying, don't be this, don't worry about this, because, I firmly believe that polarity is the key to a healthy relationship. You need to maintain your identity in a relationship. You need to be Anthony Johnson in the relationship, and not just a husband or whatever. You need to have your own specific identity, because that is the person that your wife is going to respect. That is the person that your wife is going to admire, and you need that admiration.
Yeah, I remember actually Hunter Drew, the Family Alpha, the convention last year, hit on that right off the bat in his talk.
Yeah,
and he's very explicit about it.
And so you need to be able to instill passive dread. You need to be able to instill urgency. You need to, if you wonder why your wife is not into having sex with you, it's because you don't instill that sense of urgency in her anymore, because you've been far too dependent on making her comfortable and yes dear and honey-do lists and all this other shit.
The wrong side of hypergamy.
And so I say something like this, and I'm this misogynistic asshole, or I don't know what I'm talking about, but yet I'm relating this to women who've been, on their second divorce, right? And I've been married for 22 years. I've got a whip smart 20-year-old daughter. I've done it. I've had a red pill marriage, and I've had a successful red pill relationship with my wife for 22 years. We're still together. I still have great sex with her. I still want to go home right now and go knock it out with her. You met my wife. You know what she looks like. She stays on her toes. It's not like I go, you better stay on your toes.
No, she's sharp.
She does it on her own, because we have this understanding. She knows that she's in my frame. She's always been in my frame, because of my job, because of what I do for a living. Yes. Okay. But also because that is the unspoken understanding that we have between us. And I know how to play on passive dread. It's not like I go, you better shape. I don't give ultimatums. I never do ultimatums. I don't say, hey, you better shape up, or I'm going to go and knock it out with somebody else. I've never had to, because whenever a woman has flirted with me, as a married guy, I just kind of go with it. And she's just kind of like,
she watches it.
She's like, but she realizes that I'm still attractive. She realizes that I'm still an in demand kind kind of guy.
Well, and your relationship is, first of all, healthy, but also used to be a lot more common. So it's becoming increasingly rare.
And that's another thing. It's like we've been brought up for so long in this blue pill paradigm that what I'm talking about is outrageous. I can't believe it's
used to be normal.
Like that. Yeah. And
most of it.
So it sounds like it's wrong when you've been fed this constant diet of Oprah Winfrey saying you got to keep it fresh, girl, and you got to, it's
propaganda.
You got to make sure she's comfortable, and you got to make sure you wash more dishes, and you got to be vulnerable and cry for her a few times. It's like no, you don't know. That's understand that people say. Talk to me about vulnerability a lot. And I've got several posts on vulnerability and people say, well, shouldn't I be vulnerable? And I tell guys, no, you should not be vulnerable. That should not be your primary characteristic as being a vulnerable guy. Okay. So that when you are vulnerable, women go, oh, wow, this is really serious. Oh, he's actually opening up to me.
Because it's really rare.
Yeah. Because it's a rare, it's a treat. It's a reward.
Like candy.
And then that's how a woman knows that you're serious, that you're like, okay, well, he would never do this he would never do this with his mother even, he would never do this with anybody else but me. And it plays on that arc, that Beauty and the Beast archetype where women want to tame the alpha and they want to tame the beast. And he's only tamed for her. Right. Well, if you're constantly going, oh yeah, I want to tell you about my feelings. I had a bad day at work. And you're constantly this vulnerable, sponge all the time for her. And you think that the more because men are deductive. We think that if a little bit of vulnerability is good, a whole lot, it must be even better. Right. So we're going to go and we're going to overextend on stuff like that.
When in reality, she wants to see you basically as invincible.
I'm not saying, exactly. That women, from an evolutionary standpoint, I honest to God believe this is probably written into women's DNA. They are looking for competency in men. And that means universal competency. That means they're looking for, you need to be able to change a fucking tire. You need to be able to put a new sink in the damn kitchen. You need to be able to tell me about world history. And you better be able to, you have to be like we were just talking about. Education is its own reward, right? Well, God damn it, you better know a whole lot about a whole lot, because if I got to call another guy in here to fix my sink, then that is a weakness and that's a vulnerability for you because you couldn't do that.
Well, would you say too that they crave it because they need it?
Yes, definitely. They need that. And why do they need that? They need that because in the past, that is what was a cue and an indicator for a man who could improvise. It's what's I've written a couple articles about creative intelligence, and that's what it is. It's creative intelligence.
We got to wrap up in a minute, by the way.
Okay. But what creative intelligence is it's the guy who can improvise and the guy who can create things on the fly. That's one of the reasons why artists are attractive to women, is because that on sort of a visceral kind of hindbrain, lizard brain level, women see that creative intelligence as an ability to, if shit goes south, then he'll be able to take care of me, even if the river gets high and we have to walk out of here, kind of thing. Like he'll figure out how to build a boat, right?
Or if he's got to fight or do whatever.
Yeah, he's got to fight or he's got to figure something out. So he's smart. And so there's always a selection for creative intelligence. And that's one aspect of evolve. We're talking about Evo Psych, but we can talk about that all day long.
Well, we got to wrap up. We got to head over to Cocoa Beach soon.
Yeah, we're going shark fishing today. We should take some pictures.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Thanks for coming in live.
Cool.
Appreciate you in
Thanks
studio.
a lot. Yeah,
100%.
It's great.
Thanks for tuning in live, guys. Any last words on the convention?
Just go. If you're even on the fence, I think last year's convention is certainly the best advertising for this year's.
Yeah.
Again, and this, we're trying to get away from that purple pill, that old school look. In fact, I've been talking to you about maybe even changing up some of the logos, having the campaign look
a little bit
different.
Purple,
So no. Anyways, I would love for you to change this up, and that's not just because I'm a designer myself.
A lot of it does.
But just as a change to say that we've moved on from what you have. And but I think that if you are on the fence, then ask somebody. You don't have to take my word for it. Ask somebody who went last year. Go look at some of the posts that were on my comment sections about the convention. You'll want to go. And again, it's not just you sitting there listening to guys all the time.
Yeah, the talks.
You get to. It's very interactive. I make damn sure it's interactive.
Yep.
I try to give as much value as I possibly can. I'll talk to you in between. In between seminars or in between talks,
there's
parties. There's parties.
Yep.
Like I said, Christian McQueen's goes and takes guys out, to clubs and stuff like that. I'm sure there'll be some other guys that will do that as well. I don't know if we could do it this year, but I would very much like to see some of these guys who are like the physical fitness expert guys like AJ Cortez or whoever else. I'd love to see them at the gym and say, here's, giving guys, like showing some, some sort of in the gym kind of seminar kind of thing would be great too.
We'll see.
Yeah, that'd be good. So, but do go. Yeah. And it's cheaper now.
Yes.
Than it will be because it's $9.99 right now.
Yeah, it's $800 off until May 31st, the early bird sale.
And then every month it goes up.
Yes.
A little bit. So it behooves you to do it early.
The longer you wait, the more you pay.
And it's better if you buy the ticket from my website.
Yeah, go ahead. Yep, therationalmail.com. Yes. Also, there's a link underneath this. Thanks.
Great.
Thanks, guys.
We're going fishing.
Yep, I'm going to head out.
Peace.
Adios.
Post pictures.
Yeah.